Hi everyone, Kelly here, and today I want to talk about things I read in May. I am filming this a little before the end of the month because I just haven't been reading that much lately, and so I don't think I'm going to finish much more, maybe like one more book. I have one more book for a challenge I plan on finishing, but that's pretty much it because we're leaving for vacation very soon, so I like to return the library books in this stack and just like not wait until I'm back from vacation like 3 weeks into June before I end up filming this. So yeah, let's talk about what I read in May. And basically, like I said, I haven't been reading much. Everything has been 4 stars except for the read aloud that I did with my daughter. So let's talk about that real quick. So my daughter and I read The Mouse and the Motorcycle by Beverly Cleary, and I have just not had the best time with her books. I didn't choose to read this. I had read one other with my daughter that we ended up both giving up on, and then I read a couple on my own. I've always given them 3 stars. I wasn't planning on reading any more books by this author to my daughter because I'm just not that interested. She doesn't seem that interested. But this was the school made everyone read this. So we got a free copy from the school. Everybody got a copy sent home as part of a grant or something, and we all read it together, and then they had a special fun night. And so it was fun in the fact that we were reading it as the whole school, and we had a little festival where they did everything mouse themed. That was fun, but I just still 3 stars. It was fine. It's about a little mouse who finds a boy's motorcycle. He and the boy becomes friends, and he gets obsessed with the motorcycle. And I just think that they're average. I like what this author has done for the history of children's literature, but I just kind of don't enjoy them that much, and neither does my daughter. She, I had to make her read it because we had to read it on a certain schedule, and I was like, we gotta finish our book. And then I have read 3 mangas. I read volume 9, 10, and 11, and Night of the Ice, which all of these, the library thing covers the actual name of the book. Yeah, so it's called Night of the Ice, and this is the end of the series. So number 11 was the last one. So I finally finished. This is the first manga series that I have read all the way through and finally finished. And I had a lot of fun with these. Basically, every single one of these was 4 stars. I think I had a couple in the middle where I had one that was 3 and one that was 5. But for the most part, 4-star series. I just really enjoyed it. It's about this man, or young man, who is a figure skater, and he's headed towards the Olympics. He's one of Japan's top skaters, and it just follows this one specific season as he does all the championship, national, and worlds and all that stuff to work up to the Olympics. I don't know all the lingo involved in this sport, but it was a lot of fun following his sport career. But then also it was the relationship between him and a girl who, now I forgot her name, but they grew up together, skating together, and now are rekindling their friendship, and she's his good luck charm. It was a really cute, slow burn relationship, also friendship. I liked all the people in his life. We got to see a lot of his competitors. I had a really good time with it. So if you want something just kind of fun and cute that's short, 11 volumes is pretty short, so easy to get through and read as a fluff thing. All right, now onto the novels I read. So at the beginning of the month, I read 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. And this is a romance that kind of spans 2 different timelines. So we're following 7 Days in June back 15 years ago when these 2 people met in high school and fell in love and then separated. And then current time, there's 7 Days in June where they are reuniting and getting to know each other again. And I loved the current timeline. At the beginning, I was really enjoying following Eva as our main character. She's a single mom. She's a writer of what do you call the fantasy romance type thing. I think it's kind of more on the sexy side of fantasy romance and a long running series. And so she's in that kind of genre of writing and kind of her experience with that. She also lives with chronic pain and an invisible disability. And so I really enjoyed so much of following her life. And then when she, sees Shane again, who she had fallen in love with back when she was a teenager, and they haven't seen each other this whole time, and just kind of their rekindling, I really enjoyed it. I really liked the things they were discussing and them talking through their issues from before and how they've changed over 15 years and can they be together again. All that was great, but I didn't like the past timeline. And a lot of that is that I just can't like really like get on board of these like, you know, 17, 18-year-olds or whatever, just falling madly in love when basically they spend the entire week inebriated and under the influence of like drugs or alcohol. And so I'm like, but you didn't get to know each other, but you were madly in love. So I could get behind it in the current day because they were, you know, adults and they're actually like, you know, awake and and in their full like senses the whole time. But yeah, I just did not get into the high school form of this. So this would have been 5 stars for just the like current day, but the high school part I just kind of had to like push through. And so I'm giving it 4 stars because I think it was really well written. I was very invested in the current timeline. But I just, you know, I just can't really like see how you were in love when you like barely were coherent when you were meeting the first time. So that was a problem for me. But mostly loved it and would recommend it. If you could just, like, it's not that much of the book. Like most of the book is the current timeline. So that's why I say 4 stars and still a solid read. Sorry if that last little bit was loud. Everybody was outside when I first started recording, and then all of a sudden my husband comes in, my kids come in, people are washing their hands, they're, you know, moving things around the kitchen. I'm like, okay, everybody just get settled so I can finish this. All right, so next thing that I read was The Anomaly by Hervé Letellier, and this was originally written in French, and so it's been translated, which doesn't say who the translator is. Translated from the French by Adriana Hunter. And this one, it's so hard to say anything about this book without spoiling because it's a combination of several different genres, and I think even if you just said the genres or looked them up, it kind of like, you don't even know what genre this is until quite a ways into it. So I don't even want to tell you what like different genres they are, but basically we are following a ton of different perspectives in this. So if you don't like a book where you're following lots of different characters and seeing how they intertwine, then this is probably not the book for you. Also, it's not like action-packed. It's definitely character-focused. So we're following all these different people. They have all been on the same flight together, and that's really like the only thing connecting them. And we don't know for a long time what else is connecting them or anything. We just know that they've all been on this flight. But we are just following their current lives and what's going on, and then things start to happen as it goes. But yeah, it's just not very action-packed, but it's very interesting, and it brings up a lot of conversations about life, and I can't really say anything beyond that. I mean, I know that sounds so like general and generic, but like I said, it's so hard to explain this without spoiling it. I mean, even the back doesn't really like give you much at all. So at the very beginning of this, I was like, what am I getting into? I'm just following these random people going about their lives. But by the middle of the book, I was very invested and was really enjoying it. I never got confused, especially I was even listening to most of this book. I kind of read the first few chapters and then switched to the audiobook, which the audiobook narrator is excellent. He does, because it's all like a bunch of different accents, like people in an international flight, so they're from different places, and so he does a really great job on the accents, at least from what I think. And so I was never like confused of who we are following or whatever. So I thought that was really well done, and it's just interesting, but I don't really know. I mean, I feel like the only way I can recommend it is if you like something that isn't super action packed, but is still interesting and following like interesting topics of conversation and philosophical points. And if you like something that is less plot, but still like has you invested in the characters. That's the only way I can like really describe this, because I can't tell you actually what it's about. But it was 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. And the last thing I want to talk about is something that I've been reading for a few months, and that's The Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien. And my best friend and I are reading through The Lord of the Rings. We don't know how long we're going to take. We just finished this, and we started it in March. So it took us like 2.5 months to read this one. Maybe only 2 months, because I think we started mid-March. And then we got together and had like a ladies' weekend, and we watched the first movie, which I will say, if you are someone that is behind on like getting to read these books or watch the movies is not just the first book. It also covers the first chapter of the second book. And I didn't realize that. I had seen the movies, but I'd seen them back when they came out. What is that, like 20 years ago? And so I didn't remember. So when we read this book together and then we watched the movie, I'm like, oh, it's going to keep going. And so, I mean, it's not really a spoiler because you're about to read that part in the next book. But just keep that in mind in case you were like, oh, I'm going to, in my adulthood, finally pick up The Lord of the Rings and then watch the movies. So they don't follow exactly book to movie. I really had a good time reading this with my best friend. I gave it 4 stars because it's a traveling story, which I know that. I mean, I've seen the movie, like I said, 20 years ago. I know that they're getting the ring from one place to another, so they are traveling. And traveling books just aren't usually my thing. So there were times, like I was talking to my friend Jenny, who I was reading this with, when he was pretty good about, like, knowing when to move on. So we'd be, like, going, and I'm like, okay, yeah, we're fleeing from the writers. I'm getting a little bored. Put in an elf or something, and then all of a sudden an elf would appear. Or some elves would appear, and I'm like, oh, great, you listened to me. And then I'd be like, okay, now I'm getting really tired of us staying in this spot. Can we do something else? And then suddenly it would switch. So every time I was getting bored with one part of the, like, traveling, he would switch it up and something else would happen. So for a traveling book, it was good, but it was really good, and I love the characters. It was just that it's still a traveling book, and there were still moments where I was like, okay, can we do something other than just, like, walking from one place to another? But I do really love the characters. I love the hobbits so much. I kept telling my friend, I'm just like, I am in love with Sam, and even, like, Merry and Pippin, their loyalty, and they're, like, they're so brave and loyal and honest and kind. And I just love them. I love them so much, and how even though they're small and they don't have a lot of, like, fighting skills or anything like that, that they're like, of course we're going to go on this adventure with Frodo. Like, we can't leave Frodo by himself. We have to be there to help him. And I just love it, how loyal they are. And, you know, Sam and Frodo, their friendship is beautiful. And so I love them so much in this book. All of the hobbits were my favorites, which then I was kind of disappointed when I watched the movie because I felt like they just made Merry and Pippin the comic relief, which they are the comic relief in the book, but there's so much more than just the comic relief. They have, you know, a lot more character and a lot, I don't know, I just felt like they had much more presence in the book, and in the movie it's just like every once in a while we just get a comedic quip, and that's all they're there for. And same way with Sam and Frodo's relationship, I felt like it was hardly even shown in the movie, and it is so, like, an important part of this. So there's even scenes where are real connecting points in the book where we can really see how much Sam is loyal to Frodo and, like, how he's willing to do, like, anything for him. And they, like, had the same scene in the movie but didn't have Sam in it. We just have Frodo doing it alone. And I'm like, no, that is part of their relationship. So that was something that bothered me book to movie, but otherwise I thought they did a good job. It is, like, a longish book to try to adapt, and obviously a really famous one. So I still think the movie is good. I was just like, those were the things that bothered me. But yeah, hobbits, love them all. I'm excited to continue. We've already read the first, like, couple chapters of the second book, so we're continuing. Probably it'll take a couple months again, especially since we both have vacation and, you know, summer stuff going on, and I'm moving. So maybe it'll be all summer that we take to read the second book. And that's it. All of my reading in May. It hasn't been much since I did mostly, like, manga, and then I had 2 novels, and then Lord of the Rings, I was just finishing it. So, I mean, I think I only had, like, 3 chapters by the time we got to May. So yeah, I'm just not reading that much right now, and that's how probably my summer will be with all of the stress of everything. But at least everything I enjoyed, except for the one I had to read for school, which is so funny. You know, the book we had to read for school is when we don't, like, why do schools do this to us? But yeah, I think they had to pick a book that was, like, generally well liked, and it's just not our type of book, but that's fine. Otherwise, we had a good time. I had a good time with everything I read, and I would recommend everything depending on audience. Yes, so that's it for me. Sorry, I'm just babbling at this point because I've been interrupted so much trying to film this video, but it's done. I can go on vacation and like, you know, not worry about, you know, having my library books out forever and not worry about filming this video. It's done. I hope you all are having a great May, and I will see you next time. Bye.